This is the Spritz Girl Mindset Podcast, and I'm your host, Courtney Young. If girlhood is a mindset, this is where we practice it out loud and unfiltered. We're healing, we're yapping, and we're doing it with spritzes in hand. Here's your permission slip to be soft, messy, and magnetic as hell. So grab a spritz, grab a seat, no small talk, just the real stuff. Here's the thing. Being nice has quite literally never saved a relationship. But being honest, that is what actually builds trust. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Spritz Girl Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Courtney Young, and today I want to talk about something that is really important to me. If you've been following my content for a while, I am 100% positive that you've heard me use the phrases radically honest or I'm kind, not nice. And today we're going to talk about how these things come up in so many areas of our life and why I think kindness is way more powerful than niceness and how this has shown up in my own story and why I want it for you guys. So before we even get into any of that, I do want to start with a definition, radical honesty, right? What is it that radical honesty means to me? And so when I think of that phrase, I use the word radical in my branding very specifically here. And the reason for it is because you are making an active choice to show up as your whole self rather than self-minimizing. It can be really tough to be honest with the people that we love, but we have to remember that change moves at the speed of safety. And when we feel safe with people, we should trust them enough to be able to have hard or uncomfortable conversations. Now, obviously, we want to do this with empathy and care. You don't want to go in and be like a complete jackass to somebody that you love or care about. But when you're choosing to be radically honest, you're choosing to believe that your own voice matters and that you're safe with that person you're communicating with, rather than choosing to self-minimize or hide behind this idealized version of who it is that they want you to be, right? And I believe that that is kind. I believe that that is a kind and empathetic and caring way to be rather than nice. Now, why do I separate those two words? Kindness is honest. Kindness is not dismissing yourself or dismissing how you feel about something or self-minimizing. Being nice is people pleasing, and it's about the other person and about what they want to hear rather than showing up in a way that advocates for yourself and advocates for your own voice and still supports and cares for the person in front of you, but isn't about them necessarily. It's about the truth. It's about who you are. It's about your relationship, and it's not others focused. Something I say a lot, it can be so easy to focus all of our energy on how other people think and feel and be worried about that and ruminate on that. I don't know about you, but I am a people pleaser. It's something I've struggled with my whole life. And that was something I really had to dive in and learn, is that I focus on other people's needs, emotions, thoughts, feelings. One, partially because I do care about those things, but also because it's easier to think about you and your needs and your wants than it is to actually take a look at my own. Taking a look at your own needs and learning to advocate for yourself while still having care for the person in front of you is kind. I'm going to give you like a quick example here, right? So, quick example, my husband asks me where I want to go for dinner, and I say, I don't know, whatever works for you, when really I have a preference to go get sushi. In that moment, without even thinking about it, it might not even be a conscious thought. I'm giving him the deciding factor, right? Which is great. Like, go off, King, make your decision. But let's say he chooses pizza, and then the whole time I'm low-key kind of sad because I wanted sushi. Who is that helping and who is it hurting? It's not necessarily hurting anyone, right? Like it's not hurting him. It's not hurting his feelings, but it is telling myself in my own voice that it doesn't matter. Right? So another example, compliments that feel genuine, right? Versus compliments that feel forced. So something I always say when I go to networking events or when I am at work or when I am, wanting to meet new people is the easiest way that you can do that is by offering them a compliment. But here's the thing. If it's not a genuine compliment, that's nice because it's not honest. So if I love somebody's hat, I'm going to be like, go off. I love your hat. That is so cute. Where did you get that? And that can make somebody's whole day, right? Who doesn't love being complimented? But you can tell in my voice, you can tell by the way I'm looking, you can tell by my body language whether or not I truly like your hat, or if I'm just saying that to like kind of disarm and make it less awkward. So again, kind versus nice. Another example, and this one's a little spicier. How many of us have had friends in really toxic situationships? I am not a proponent of situationships for lots of reasons, but one of those reasons is they're not honest. You're not saying what it is you actually want to say. You're not calling it what it is. You're not setting boundaries. You're not defining those terms. You're literally just like kind of like vibing, And like there's a time and a place. Like that's what dating is for, right? Before we put labels on anything. And that's one thing if you're having that conversation and whatever. But so many of us know these people that are in these really toxic situationships. Nice is, let's say your bestie Cheryl comes up to you and is like, oh my God, I am hanging out with Jake and it's so great. And we're just like vibing and it's all good, whatever. Nice would be going along with it. When you see that Cheryl's becoming a shell of herself, when you see that she's not advocating for her own needs or her own desires, when you see that she is expecting boyfriend standards out of something that's not going to go anywhere, but also not communicating it, and you sit there and you smile and you say, oh my God, so great. That's nice. Kind and radically honest in that conversation would be, hey, Cheryl, like, I just want to let you know I love you so much and I'm here for you in whatever season that looks like. If this is working for you, great. I am happy for you and I care for you and I love you. However, you haven't seemed like yourself lately, and this is what I've noticed. And maybe that's too forward for you. That's fine. Kind could also be being honest about like, I don't really know, friend, and then helping her open a bottle of wine and sitting and yapping about it. See, genuine support is not always agreeing with what these people in our lives do, right? We don't always have to agree with the person in front of us. We don't always have to agree with the people who care about us. We don't always have to agree with family or friends or coworkers, but genuine support is showing up in a way that is loving and caring and empathetic while also being honest, bringing your full self to the conversation. Genuine support is telling your friends when you see that they aren't themselves. It's having the hard conversations. It's sitting in that discomfort. It's advocating for yourself instead of using that phrase, whatever works. So why do we default to nice instead of honest? I've been ruminating on this for a little bit, and I think it comes down to a couple things. The first thing I think it comes down to is fear of conflict. I think we're afraid to say the hard thing because sometimes it's easier to, just go with the flow than it is to step on toes. I think we could be afraid of losing these relationships. And the question I have for that is, now again, there's a difference between being a dick and being honest and empathetic and holding space. Like these are things that we have to learn to like do all at the same time. If you are being honest while still holding space for the other person, and the thing you're afraid of is that they aren't going to like you anymore, are they a real friend? Are they someone that is safe for you? Are they someone that genuinely you want to grow with and build that relationship in your life? Because I know that's a hard question to ask, and it's something I've had to ask myself a lot. And I'm finally, thank goodness, in a place where I truly value and love and care about my people. And I'm so grateful. But the reason I'm there is because I've done the work to surround myself with people I feel safe around, to surround myself with people I know I can be honest with. And I stop saying whatever works. That's a phrase that genuinely I try to throw out the window and have not in my vocabulary because while, yeah, sometimes, whatever works is a perfectly viable answer, there's a huge difference in saying, let's say I'm talking to my husband. He's like, hey, let's go back to that example. You want to go grab pizza or you want to go get dinner? Instead of saying, whatever works for you, that's dismissive. But if I were to say, yeah, dinner sounds great. I'm kind of feeling sushi, but if there's something else you want to do, let's talk about it. I'm open to suggestions. That one vocalizes, that you have this idea or this preference or something that you would really like. And two, gives permission to the other person to make that decision. Maybe you truly have no preference. And if that's the case, then it's completely different to say, yeah, dinner sounds great. What were you kind of thinking? And also, 9 times out of 10, when we do that, we realize that we secretly do have a preference, but we're not used to asking ourselves what our preference actually is. One of my favorite things, and I was just talking about this with a fellow podcaster the other night, when someone's going through something, is to say, how can I support you? Because in times where I've needed to be supported or lifted up, I don't stop and think and ask myself what that actually looks like or what I actually need, right? So when you are asking, how can I support you? You're giving that person the opportunity to advocate for what it is that they actually need. We should be doing that for ourselves too. Ask yourself, how can I support you in this moment? I'm in this tension with this friend and I don't know how to get out of it. I know I need to be honest, but I'm not feeling like I'm ready there or I'm ready to be there yet. Okay, well, Courtney, how can I support you in this moment? How can I advocate for what you need? And that doesn't necessarily mean you address it right in that moment, right? There's plenty of time and space and all of that good stuff. Like, take your time, girl. Like, you don't have to respond to things immediately. I know impulsiveness is something I struggle with, but we can wait a day. We can wait 24 hours. That text can stay unread. But ask yourself before you respond, how can I support myself? The same way I am thinking about how I can support them, how can I show up for myself in this moment? And then do that thing and do it in a way that is empathetic and kind and caring, right? Now, there's a reason I'm so passionate about this, right? And it's because I've been on the other side for so long. And in my 20s, this truly was one of my biggest mistakes. So, in college or in my college era, I guess you could say, I had a group of friends that I really wanted to fit in with. But I did have a mentor in my life at that time who was constantly telling me, Courtney, you're too much. You're too annoying. You're too annoying to ever lead. No one's ever going to listen to what you have to say. So I had all these negative thoughts in my head. I was constantly hyperfixated on the fact that I was too much and I should make myself more quiet. I should self minimize and just go along with the flow. And so that's what I did. And the minute I did that with this particular group of friends, I started being included in things a lot more, which was crazy to me because at this point in time, I was undiagnosed with my ADHD. So I had no idea what was actually going on because I wasn't listening to myself or advocating for myself or even thinking about myself. I was just thinking about how can I show up for these other people and have these relationships in my life. And unfortunately, a lot of those friendships have since ended. And why did they end? They ended because I realized what was actually happening and I realized that I had become a shell of myself. And some of the people that knew me the most and loved me the most were brave enough to say those things to me. And so I started to step back and I started to do that work and I started to peel back those layers and realize that I did have preferences, that I did have things that I liked and didn't like, that everything that I was agreeing with or agreeing to wasn't actually what I felt or thought or believed. And when I had that realization, I was like, well, what do? We can either continue down this path that, we're going down and keep these friends and continue to go with the flow, or, we can implement the work that we've been doing. We can show up for ourselves. We can start to vocalize and say those preferences. We can live life the way we want to live life. And unfortunately, when I started to do that, the narrative became, oh, well, Courtney, you changed. Oh, Courtney, you're different. Oh, Courtney, we're upset. It's not, we don't understand what happened. You flipped the script on us. And at first, when that happened, I was so angry. I was so mad. I was like, what do you mean? We've been friends for so long and I have changed? Seriously? That's why you don't want to be my friend anymore? Because I'm starting to stick up for myself because I have different thoughts and opinions. And I was so angry for so long. And then now looking back on that time and being a couple years removed from it, I've realized that they had a right to be upset, right? They were friends with this idealized version of me. They weren't friends with the real Courtney. They didn't know who I was. And just as I was upset that the narrative got painted, Courtney, you changed, I can totally see a world where they would be upset because they lost their friend. And they lost their friend because I had allowed them to believe that this idealized version of me that they had painted for themselves was who I really was. And I never want to do that again, ever in any of my relationships. I want to show up as myself, fully for myself. And again, I'm going to do so with empathy, with care, with curiosity. I want to listen to the person in front of me. I want to genuinely know them, but I'm also going to do that in a way where I'm asking myself the hard questions. I'm showing up for myself the same way I expect myself to show up for other people because I only get one life. You can only invest in so many people, right? Like, we can't have a bajillion friends. You can't have a bajillion close friends. It's just simply not possible. You can have an amazing relationship with so many people when you feel safe and when you feel heard. And the only way to feel safe in your relationships is to be radically honest, is to look at those relationships through a lens of kindness rather than a lens of niceness. And I'm really happy that I did that. I am so grateful for the friends that have been radically honest with me, right? Because it's allowed us to grow in our relationship. And something else I want to add here too is that messy growth is still growth, right? So when we do things for the first time, it's going to be clunky and it's not going to feel 100% right. And I've had to have plenty of hard conversations with people I really care about. And people have had to say things to me. I have this tendency to invite literally everybody to everything, and not everything is for everybody. And one of my very, very, very close friends had a conversation with me one day and was like, "Hey, like I was hosting this thing and I invited you to come participate in my thing and you invited other people that I don't know." And that upset me. And you know what my response to that was? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. You're right. I do that. And it's something I'm aware of and it's something I need to work on. And guess what? That relationship has grown 10 times since then because that person now feels safe to come to me when they are frustrated. Just like I know I could go to that person when I'm frustrated and say, "Hey, when you did X, I felt Y." Let me throw something else in here too. You are not responsible for anyone else's feelings, right? Every person, every human is responsible for their own feelings and their own emotions. You cannot make anyone feel any type of way, which is why I love that phrase of when you did X, I felt Y. So, Courtney, when you invited all of these people to this thing that you weren't supposed to be inviting people to, I felt rejected. I felt upset. I felt hurt. And that feeling is so valid. And because that friend was able to tell me that and was able to tell me that in a way that was kind, was empathetic, but was also honest, that allowed me to be aware of the thing I was doing that was hurting her feelings. Honesty doesn't have to be harsh, right? It can always land as love. You can always have hard conversations with people that you feel safe with. And again, if you can do it with empathy and curiosity and a genuine desire to hear the other person's perspective and to, advocate for yourself, but also hold space for them, that's love. That's safety. That's like true relationship building. That is, hey, you're not just a fun friend that I'm going to hang out with on the weekends, but you're somebody that I genuinely care about and want to grow with. It can deepen those relationships. There is freedom and relief that comes when people know where it is that they stand. There's freedom and relief on both ends, not just for them, but for you, because you are realizing that you are safe to advocate for yourself. So, honesty is the ultimate sign of safety because of that, because it allows us to show up fully and wholly as we are and genuinely engage in a way that is empathetic and loving and caring for the person in front of us. So, how do we do that practically? Right? So I gave an example a couple of minutes ago. One of my favorite tools here is when you did X, I felt Y. Taking responsibility for your own feelings while also explaining in an honest way why they were hurt. Another thing is asking yourself and maybe doing like a gut check, right? Am I sharing this to build connection or am I sharing it to defend myself? What is my goal with this conversation? Am I prioritizing our relationship? Am I prioritizing myself or am I only prioritizing pleasing that person, right? You could try saying what it is you really want to say instead of defaulting to I'm fine. I challenge everyone listening to this right now. Count how many times you say whatever works or I'm up for anything or whatever you want to do. Count how many times you say that this week and make it a challenge to yourself that next week we're going to eliminate that from our vocabulary. And that's not to say you can't take other people's feelings into consideration, but it is to say, check in with yourself. Another way you can do this or, make this easier for yourself is to build in self-care time, build in time specifically for you that is focused on bettering you and not just dopamine hits. So for me, a great time for that is doing my skincare routine. I love doing my skincare routine. Now, sometimes I don't do it because I get lazy. And we all have those days. But when I can take the 30 minutes to sit there and do my skincare and do my gua sha and watch a reality show in the background, like that makes a huge difference in my day. Or going to bed on time. That's another one that makes a huge difference in my day. So just starting to listen to yourself point blank, period, and asking yourself, hey, like I need to check in with myself in this moment. How about on those days for us extroverts who don't have anything going on, allowing ourselves to sit with the fact that we don't have anything going on? I had to keep myself in check this week, y'all. And the reason I say that is because last weekend I had nothing going on. And you know what my immediate instinct was? To book a last minute flight. And that's fine. Sometimes that's fun. But then I asked myself, why am I booking the flight? I'm literally only going to be there for 24 hours. Why am I booking this last minute flight? Is it because I genuinely want to travel? Well, yeah, but I'm traveling 3 weekends in a row starting next week. Is it that, I want to have fun? Well, yeah, but like, why can't I do that with my own self in my own space with my own people? Why is it that I am constantly running away from rest and from chilling and like pausing? There's power in the pause, right? It's like talked about earlier. You don't have to move immediately. We can take a couple minutes, we can pull back, we can check in with ourselves. That's important and it's powerful. And I just want to reiterate, kindness requires honesty. And niceness often avoids it, right? So, a lot of these like dopamine hit things that we're doing, a lot of this escapism that we lean into, a lot of that, like that's avoiding, right? So, how do you think we're going to show up in our relationships? We're going to avoid. Whereas when we check in with ourselves, when we genuinely are holding space for the other person, when we're having those uncomfortable conversations, that's being honest. That's telling yourself that you matter, your voice matters, your story matters, and it's giving yourself that space to advocate for yourself. And if you're safe with yourself, then you can be safe with the person in front of you. And if you can't, then maybe we need to move on. And that's okay too, right? Like just because something ends doesn't mean it has to end poorly. If you don't feel safe with people, they shouldn't be in your inner circle. And if you can't be honest with people, they're not safe people. Honesty is uncomfortable sometimes, but it's the only way to build trust and belonging, both with yourself and with your communities. So, this week, I would love to see you guys all try one act of radical honesty and share your experience with me. I would love to hear about how you're going to implement that into your week this week and how we can make that change to move towards a kindness lens rather than a niceness lens. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next week on the Spritz Girl Mindset Podcast. Don't forget to follow and leave a 5-star review if you like the episode. In addition to that, in January, I will be launching my next round of Spritz Connection groups. If this episode resonated with you, that might be something that you are interested in. My group coaching groups will be relaunching again in January, so go ahead and send me a DM to get on that short list. In addition to that, my lovely friend Candace at Candace Michelle Enneagram and I will be launching what we're calling the Anti-Healing Hub. And that is going to be a community for people just like you to come and join us for lives, coaching hot seats, all kinds of different things. We're so excited about everything that we're planning for that community. And that's going to be launching in January as well. Thank you so much for being here. And as always, have a great week.